Hello there.
What's up, everyone?
Hello. Hello and welcome to another Creatures and Corridors long rest podcast. It's me and Kyle today. Just the two of us. Just the two of us.
No.
Anyways, we are. What are we talking about today, Kyle?
Oh, man. Well, we have last week's session, which was pretty fun. And we have next week's session, which is a Christmas one shot.
Very excited for that. Yep. So we're going to talk a little bit about past and future of the channel, and maybe even get into a little character talk as well. And there's plenty of exciting stuff coming in the holiday season too. And
Exciting for us. Hope it's exciting for everyone else.
Definitely.
I can tell you what I'm excited about, even though it's kind of jumps the gun a little bit. I'm excited about Call of Cthulhu next week.
Yeah, so I've kind of been trying to get an annual Christmas one-shot thing going. So the past 2 years, we've done a little D&D one-shot. Last year, we did actually stream it. I don't think we...
No, I don't think we
streamed
did.
The first year?
I don't think we did. I think, no, I think we started streaming last year, so why not even have done it the year before?
Yeah, so the fruitcake elemental thing, that was last year.
Right.
And then the year before that was Xanathar Steals Christmas. Yeah, so anyways, it's been fun, just kind of a real lighthearted thing. But this year, Kyle actually suggested this, and we was like, hey, let's do something a little different with Call of Cthulhu, a little horror. We've all been kind of, we love D&D, we love 5e, but it's good to mix things up every once in a while. There's so many different systems out there in the TTRPG sphere, and I actually, some of you may or may not know, I actually got my start DMing in Call of Cthulhu before I ever DM'd a session of D&D. That's my bread and butter. So it's very definitely holds a special place in my heart.
I know, and I'm super excited. D&D, like you said, there's a whole bunch of TTRPGs out there, and each one has something unique and special about it. And what I'm excited about Call of Cthulhu, other than its kind of unique skill system and stat system, is the sanity system that we get to explore. And if you don't know, the goal of Call of Cthulhu is to solve the mystery and go crazy while doing it. And my plan is to do one of those next week. And I'm all out of sanity.
Came to solve mysteries and go insane. I'm all out of mysteries.
Hey man, that's what I'm excited about. I'm not going to spoil too much about my character. I don't think. Not that he's super like deep or special in any way, but I think it's going to be fun. So I plan on having a blast.
Just to give you all a little taste, it's typically Cthulhu is set either like in the early 1900s or sometimes in present day. Time period can vary. Those are usually the two most common. But we've actually elected for I just decided it'd be a good idea. I've actually elected for the Victorian era, so we're doing kind of mid 1800s, and I think that's gonna be pretty spicy. It's very much, you really gotta kind of change your thought process there. There's very, very little technology, but it's more than medieval technology, but there's no magic like D&D, so it's
exactly.
It's
really that sweet spot where you're like modern enough to like keep up, but you don't have the technology to go with it, and you're not like, man, I don't know anything about 1200 China, but like I know the most recent years are like European history. This session's taking place in London, so we can kind of piece it together. It's during, like I said, the mid 1800s, so you can kind of piece together what to expect. A little bit of prestige, a little bit of, I don't know what to call it, classism.
Yeah, it's Cthulhu, Lovecraft in general wasn't exactly a great guy. There was definitely a lot of pretty messed up stuff during that era, but we obviously are going to highlight the things that were good and try to minimize the things that weren't maybe so good, and that's just That's just history for you. Humans have done a lot of messed up stuff over the years.
And they still are, but what can you do, you know?
Yeah, we do the same. We do the same thing in D&D. There was a lot of really crappy stuff that happened in the medieval era, but it's fantasy. So Cthulhu,
Exactly.
fantasy too. We can change things to make it a little more in line with the modern day. So yeah, that's coming up next week. We'll be streaming it right here. I'd like to start a little earlier. We haven't actually. We're having a session 0 after this podcast ends, so we'll set a firm time. But personally, I would like to start things a little on the early side, earlier than we normally stream, just because I have a feeling it's going to be a somewhat long session. I don't want it to get cut short.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm always down for a long session, you know. 4, 5, 6, 18 hours, whatever it takes.
18 hours, yeah. Well, I just want to make sure we got plenty of times to get to the end. This
Right.
I do not want to split this at all.
Can't really have a good cliffhanger on Christmas unless somebody dies. Then what can you do?
Yeah. I guess that's always an option. But so be sure to tune in for that. We're very excited. Hope you are too. And as always, it'll be up on the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll be posting it to YouTube after. Oh, Foxley says, I'm all for an 8-hour sesh.
Yeah. That's all. That's 2 out of at least 4 people.
So, wow, dude, I don't count. That's 3.
Oh. Well, you haven't confirmed or denied, so that's 3 out of at least 5 people.
Listen, if everyone's on board, then I'm on board. So, yeah, and I guess with that, we can talk about last week then. Had some spicy stuff happen in ye old Star Wars 5e.
Yep,
and
I'm refreshing myself in my head as we speak. Last week when everything, a lot of shooting,
all
a lot
combat,
of spiking,
4 hours of combat, baby.
Yeah, average D&D.
If you like tactical RPGs, boy, was that last session for you, or tactical war game, whatever. It was all, and normally, like, I've just kind of as a DM have been like, even if a session is going to be combat heavy, I try to have some role play, and probably not as much as I would have preferred. But
when everything falls apart, you do what you can do.
It. Yeah, that last cliffhanger was basically ending on initiative anyways, so I was just like, well, I guess we're just gonna get into it.
Yeah, for sure. Just press the trigger, start blowing things up. That's what Star Wars is all about.
Drum Sniper says, "Talk about a rock in a hard place." Yeah, it really was it was a really fucked up encounter. Man, I wonder who designed that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to have words.
Well, I'll tell you, I have only been pushed to make increasingly more difficult encounters because the players are so good at playing their characters. If you guys weren't nearly as good at playing tactically and utilizing all your abilities, then I don't think my encounters would be nearly as hard as they can sometimes be.
And if Karo wasn't such a beast on the battlefield.
Yeah, well,
Karo is a raid. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Karo's a raid boss, though. At the end of the day, dude, just
with that crazy purple knockout gas.
Yeah. If only we can get him to fail his saves, which is basically impossible at this point.
Intelligence save.
I think this might be a small. I know it's not really a narrative spoiler, but I was working with Sammy about his class feature lets him change any maneuver to a general maneuver, so he can get some of those like mental maneuvers that he's not good at statistically, mechanically, and turn those into strength or dexterity based maneuvers, which means, and I think Vrain's going to do this too, he can take, using superiority die, he could take these like intelligence saving throws, turn it into a general maneuver and convert it to like dexterity or strength saving throws. Meaning that he is going to be a wall of. He's a raid boss. It's pretty much proficiency in everything. Costs a superiority die, so it's not free, but it's a good backup.
Power of saving throws, man.
Yeah.
If you know how to stack them in your favor, they're arguably the strongest things you can do in
Yep.
D&D.
Half damage is clutch, but sometimes, failing saving throws is fun too. I was watching an episode of Critical Role the other day. By the other day, I think it was like yesterday. Since Legends of Vox Machina season 2 is coming out, so I was like, oh man, I gotta finish the Chroma Conclave arc. So I was just like, go, 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 go. And so they were fighting one of the dragons, and the dragon cast Disintegrate on the cleric. Which, if it wasn't for Pike's magic armor, she would have literally been roasted on the spot because it knocked her to 0. And
God bless.
it was everybody was super intense, and it could have been really bad. But yeah, man, it just reminds me of this power. Savers suck saving throws. Don't underestimate them. It sucks when they pass them, but you win combats when they fail them. And
Wait, but is Disintegrate even a saving throw? I thought it was just like if they had less than 100 hit points, they just get pooped.
oh, that's power word kill. Power word kill it kills them if they have 100 or less HP. It's a 9th level spell. Disintegrate is, I can't remember what spell level Disintegrate is.
It's like fucking 40 die 10 or something. Okay, that's
it's
it's
like
an
10 die
obnoxious
6.
amount of force damage.
Yeah, it's like 10 die 6 or something crazy plus 40. And if you knock them to 0, you just like disintegrate them to ash, and except for like their magic items, they get a dexterity saving throw to dodge it. But if they fail that, it's a lot of damage coming their way. And they almost lost.
Not want to be on the receiving end of one of those.
Nope. But as a DM, it's your best friend.
Yeah, I don't think I've pulled either of those spells out.
No, those are.
We never really get to those.
Yeah, those are pretty high level
levels.
stuff. The combat encounter started when the main dragon cast a meteor swarm on the entire party, dealing like 100 damage to everybody, and it was. I mean, I'm excited to see it on the cartoon. I really hope they. I really hope they finish the Chroma Conclave arc in one season, and then I hope to season 3 that's been confirmed. I guess is going to be the Vecna arc, I imagine. And that's my guess. I don't know.
That seems about right for a camp, like 3 seasons.
Yeah, 3 seasons, 3 main arcs feels about right. I just hope
because obviously there's so many hours of
shit
that happens in that.
Yeah,
campaign.
for sure, it's pretty easy. I mean,
just sticking to the high points.
Right. If you ask me, the season 2 is going to be, it's going to be very episodic. They're going to get their what's it called? I'm totally blanking on what it's called right now. But the Vestige, they're going to go each episode. I imagine, right? It's going to be a couple episodes of like setup. Then it's going to be all right. Go get your vestiges of power. In each episode, it's going to be them getting their vestiges of power. Then it's going to be just that like killing dragons while they go. So that's my guess. I don't know. I mean, who knows what's really going to happen when the show comes out? But I'm excited for it. I'm going to enjoy it.
I'm into it, man. I thought that first season was probably some of the best representation of a D&D campaign, like in our heads. It's not what it's like actually playing it, but it is what it's like remembering it, if that makes sense.
that feels about right. Yeah, it does a really good job of capturing, because a lot of people, they go into, if they like don't really know much about Critical Role, or they want to, like, this is their first kind of like foray into it, they might be expecting just like a medieval fantasy cartoon, like, oh, it's just these characters in a fantasy story, and so it can be very probably jarring watching it happen, but it really is D&D characters in a fantasy world, complete with all the shenanigans that like players bring to the table.
Right.
And
the humor and the fucking around and whatnot.
Exactly. The nonsense, the morally gray everything.
Oh yeah.
So
so if you haven't watched it yet, check it out. What are you doing here? Go watch Legend of Vox Machina. It's amazing. So yeah, just I guess before we move on, finish up, is there anything else you wanted to say about the session from last week?
I don't have anything to say. I am curious about at the very end, Bulgrave was like, yo, I'm starting a war. And I was like, and of course I have my Vrain has his thoughts about that. I have my thoughts about that. Um, I'm excited to see that play out because I, as a player, and Vrain thinks he knows what was left behind, but we'll have to address that next session in like 2 months. But I'm curious. I definitely would like to see big money, the big movers of the galaxy, like making big plays. Basically, I think that's going to be super fun. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time setting up these various factions, and the Pikes may be slightly more underdeveloped, but I think they're pretty well established in like the other media.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
TV shows
That's the
so.
advantage to using them, is it's like stuff like the Eclipse. They're new. The Seldorian Eclipse, I believe, is a new faction here, so you kind of have to spend time developing them. Whereas the Pikes and like the Hutts, you have like the weight of the lore behind to lean on and use that
even
reputation.
The Crimson Dawn, to some extent, if you're really into Star Wars lore, the Crimson Dawn is, I mean, that's if you've seen Solo, that's the primary faction in that.
Yep, they kind of remind me of like Hydra agents in the Star Wars lore a little bit. They're not like powerful like entities, but there's kind of a lot of them. They're just kind of everywhere. They're definitely more like kind of like Hydra agents. That's my interpretation. I don't know an extensive amounts about the Dawn. Maybe I could afford to look into it more. I know. Like a year ago, there was a whole solo arc when they were transporting Han Solo's body to Jabba the Hutt, and all these different criminal factions were trying to go in after Solo's body. The Dawn was one of the factions in play, and it was a big thing. And I saw some stuff around there.
There's a comic book, I believe, and it has a lot to do with Kira and all that stuff. I'm sure Jama knows. He's our resident like deep lore expert. You would think it'd be me, the DM, but listen, I got a lot on my plate. I don't always have time to dig into the super deep stuff. And I find it interesting. It's not that I don't like it. I just I'm like, I got a session to prep, man. I don't have time to read a whole fucking story about fucking something unrelated that may not even.
You're on Wikipedia.
One plot point.
You just go to Wikipedia. So let's look at the Crimson Dawn Wikipedia, read up on that, and be like, all right, and kind of roll with it.
I live and die by the wiki. But that's life, and that's the fun of trying to run an established setting too. Is if it was my setting, I'd be like, well, I'll just make it up. I'll just make it whatever I want it to be.
Right. That is one of the like split elements of Star Wars. I think is that half of the universe is like established, but like you're also in space, and a lot of Star Wars lore is people making up random space entities because like. Space is infinite, right? Like you can literally just have like space whales, and which there are space whales in Rebels, I believe, and so
space dolphins,
yeah, space giants,
kraken,
space krakens. Wait, there's a space kraken on our ship.
Hold up. But yeah, I think it's really interesting because even though like so much of the galaxy is controlled by the New Republic, or so they think anyways, there can still be like pockets that are just entirely their own like country, so to speak. I mean, like there can be like a whole like star system that like we're seeing with the Wheel. It's like they recognize the New Republic, but they're kind of taking care of their own business. They've got their whole little own ecosystem that functions within the greater. It's like a city state almost within this greater empire. Not really empire, but
right. The New Republic is definitely has its work cut out for them, and as we know from the The Force Awakens, A New Hope, and or Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, that they did not have a very good grasp on things, given that within like what 30 years, the First Order had already arrived and gotten rid of everything they'd done. So clearly, their grasp on the galaxy was very fickle. So
Well, for anyone who's seen Andor, and we're going to be very careful about spoilers here because I don't want to spoil that show for anyone, but we definitely see how the Empire was able to keep such a firm grasp on the galaxy for so long, and it really puts things in perspective because we all know the New Republic isn't going to go to such lengths to keep their control over the galaxy, being the good guys and all.
Pretty much. The Empire moved quick, they moved hard, and you can tell that
Ruthless.
there were pieces
No
already
mercy.
in motion. Before Palpatine took over, and they immediately began moving things around. The New Republic obviously does not have all that prep. They kind of won the battle, then they were like, "Oh crap! Now it's time to. Now we have to actually run the place."
Yeah. Right.
So
if you haven't seen it already, this is your sign. Go watch Andor. It's possibly for me at least, probably my favorite piece of Star Wars media since The Mandalorian, like season 1. Really, really good. Works great. Just like, even if you're not super into Star Wars, I think it just works on its own as a good like story. It doesn't really require you to be into Star Wars, I feel like. But it certainly helps.
yeah, for sure. Both, yeah. You really don't need to know much about Star Wars, though. I feel like you'll appreciate it more if you're a Star Wars fan. Just the
the
world
obviously
building, the
it is
pacing,
within the
right. There's just exactly. There's an elements of like appreciation I think would come from just being like, hey, like this is just like a guy in a random planet. But yeah,
it's just one man's story of trying to make it through the galaxy. That's all there is to it. It's really good story, really good acting. All the main characters are phenomenal in their roles, and obviously very well written. Cinematography, there's some beautiful shots that just I can still, as I talk about it, I can just still picture some of like some really beautiful frames that are just so like etched into my mind now.
yeah,
It's such a cool
really good. It's hard to describe. Definitely some of the best Star Wars content to come out in a while.
Good stuff. Hopefully, I believe it did get confirmed for season 2 also. So
I believe
big
so.
hype for that.
Hard to know with a Disney CEO moving around, but I believe season 2 is still moving forward. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's pretty spicy. That I remember hearing about that. They went back to the old guy that tried to retire. Whatever his name was.
No
Iger.
idea what or Iger was the one who left. I can't remember. But yeah, it's an interesting interesting decision. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it'll be the past 20 years or so of Disney is some of the most successful it's been. It's only recently once they now who knows if the changing of the leadership was like I still maintain that COVID had a lot to do with the problems that like the MCU and Star Wars have been dealing with. Although I guess the sequels came out before that, but that was just it just seemed like some poor planning on their parts, really, more than anything else. Which you can't. I don't think you can really level that at any singular person, even if it's
especially because he's probably has nothing to do with half of it. The decisions are being made lower and only go up to that if it's like an issue. So
it's like these video games where they've got just thousands of people working on them and trying to, everyone's trying to look busy. They come in, they work their shifts, and they're just doing what their boss tells them, and their boss is just doing what their boss tells them, and
exactly.
Everyone's just trying not to get fired.
Sounds about right.
So crazy times, man. I can't even imagine working in an industry like that.
I bet it's got its pros and cons, but man, I bet it's rough. And of course, that's ignoring the whole Disney. That's ignoring the whole Disney animator strike or conversation that was happening like less than a year ago.
There's so many talented and hardworking people. I'm not trying to minimize, that they don't care or anything. There's so many people who, you know, bleed and sweat for that company. Probably more than they should. But, um, you know, it's everything happens for a reason. So if they do get if they do get the axe, then maybe they'll move on and open their own studio. Who knows?
Like Pixar, or is it Pixar or was it no DreamWorks? Was it DreamWorks?
Yeah.
So
It split off from Disney to make
Yeah.
their own thing. Yeah, I believe that was DreamWorks.
so it's
No, yeah, it's crazy. You look back at history, and sometimes like somebody getting fired or dropping out of college or whatever puts them on the path to some of the
Yeah.
most success that people have
yeah,
ever
it's,
seen.
it's like I disagree, so I'm gonna go do my own thing, and then it just becomes its full cultural or successful institution, which I guess is kind of all human history. It's kind of it's the essence of evolution, basically. And so, but the old
Lixion, hello, welcome.
oh, hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Whenever we get like our notifications and stuff set up for the stream, we got to make that the whenever like somebody like donates or subscribes, we got to make it the hello there.
Hello there. Hello there. Hello
That
there.
seems so perfect.
Whenever someone follows, it's just like hello there, and whenever someone subscribes, it's like General Kenobi.
There's a lot we could do with that. It'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, for sure.
So what else we got? What do we got to talk about here?
Well, I have still been playing Marvel Snap. I have suckered Jama into playing it as well. There's just there's something fun about playing some of your favorite characters on and doing big things with them, or characters becoming your favorite characters because you like their card.
It's a cool game, man. It's definitely taking the internet by storm these days. One of my favorite Legends of Runeterra creators actually completely quit Runeterra to play Snap now because he's just granted he was like feeling the burnout and like wanting to make a change already, so that was just kind of his like golden opportunity. Like here's this new game that's just blowing up right now, so he just kind of saw that as his time to I'm talking about Mega Mogwai, if anybody cares to check him out. He's a really good creator. He's very, very funny, very creative. His whole series on Runeterra was like he would come up with like a new deck he was always homebrewing like his own deck. So like every day he'd have a new one. So I believe it's probably similar. I haven't really watched it, but similar content I imagine for Snap.
Yeah, Snap is pretty good. And one of the cool things about Snap is the variant system. So like in other words, your I forgot what the word is, but your totally blanking on the word. Basically, the stuff that makes your cosmetics. There we go. So usually, if you have like a single card, the card, they might sell you cosmetics for the card. Be like, all right, here's your character, but here's your character, but different. And the cards are completely interchangeable, but they don't actually provide any meaningful value to you other than customization. And in Marvel Snap, the cosmetics, in terms of like cards, provide value to the player because you upgrade the cards as you go on, not their abilities but their visual looks, and then which unlocks more cards using a collection level system. So it's really cool. You can not only get your favorite card, you can get like a cooler version of the card or a different version of the card, then build on that card. And the collection levels do like crazy things. Like as you first like max out your or not the collection level, but like the card level. When you first max out the card level, you unlock a new version of it that's a holo. Then it adds like a sparkle aesthetic to the hollowness.
3D. Sorry, the fucking voice lines just
yeah, I know
make me laugh
exactly.
every time.
Exactly. The first time you get the card, it's like super generic. And then it frame breaks and it's 3D. Then they, I think after 3D
animated.
they end. One of them's animated. One of them is I think legendary. They shiny the the card name. So then,
Text.
and
Yeah,
then
the name of
Ultra,
the character.
in Ultra they will animate the card. By animate, it's that like 3D like style of animation that's not like the cards. No, it's not like Harry Potter, but the cards are like moving. You can say like you can see like the fire waving or something like that.
They've I've seen similar technology in as something they started doing in Hearthstone. So back in the day, the gold cards would kind of have this like effect where it made it look like it was like a GIF, like of a moving character, and then now they've got diamond cards which are fully popping out of the frame, like fully like will do like full animations and stuff. So very sim. If you're into Hearthstone, that's a similar trait that they have. It's made by, isn't it? The Snap was made by the like one of the main dudes.
Yeah,
from
Ben
Hearthstone.
Brode, I believe. Yeah, I know he came from. I think he came from Hearthstone, so it makes sense. But yeah, it's a super fun game. I like playing Doctor Doom.
It captures that like just like that flow and that like kind of like almost like musicality that early Hearthstone had. There's something just kind of magic about the feeling of just kind of slinging cards, and the music timing and sound effects and everything. It really makes the game feel alive.
The music's great. The cards will have their own like special effects when you like pull it from your hand, or they'll have like their own like you'll hear like the character speak and say something like a catchphrase, and it's just
they got their little bark.
Yeah, it's super fun. And
Valexion says 3D. Psh, I prefer singularities. Nothing like a card that only does one thing, but does it so well it pulls the entire meta around it itself.
Yeah, well, luckily, Marvel Snap doesn't have that problem like most card games. There's not a. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend to be like super deep into the meta game, but there's not really like a defined meta because everybody's at like a different stage in the collection level. And even though there are full like deck archetypes, there's no one that's just dominating the archetypes. And then you get like a hot location that could completely screw over like your main deck, or maybe it enhances your main deck.
Yeah, I noticed the location system really seems to steer the meta more than because like you said, obviously there's tiers of collection. But like if one location's super popular, it's like, oh, maybe I should play this deck that synergizes with that since I'm gonna see it a lot.
Exactly, and I think
I was trying to play one deck and I kept getting screwed by locations. I was like, I guess I just need to change decks. This isn't working.
Right. So, it's but but there's cards in the game that can interact with locations, and you can kind of flip them to your advantage. Or if like you're playing on a bad location, your opponent might not be playing on it because they don't want to play on it because it's bad for them. Then near the end of the game, you flip the location into something valuable, and all of a sudden you're winning a location that you weren't winning earlier due to just like Scarlet Witch or Storm or someone like that.
Yeah, those epic comebacks.
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely provides some pog gameplay for sure.
So my favorite like things to do, if you will. Not that I don't run a location changer right now in my main deck, but like there are cards. There's a location called Limbo, which adds a 7th turn to the game. But if you drop a location change on that location on turn 6, the game will end on turn 6. So therefore, if you can catch your opponent off guard, and you can cut the game out early and take that win if they're not expecting it. So it's really cool to like work through that and catch your opponent off guard. So many different ways to interact in the game. It feels kind of crazy, but also it's just feels kind of legendary.
Yeah, it's a cool game for sure. Check it out. Free to play. Like Kyle said, the only money you can really spend on it is for cosmetics, and that's pretty much not necessary.
And there's still like there's still a limiting faction, even like when you because you can buy the gold to buy the credits you need to enhance your cards, but you're still limited like the number of times you can buy credits per day. So you can't just like turbo spend all your money And even if you do turbo spend all your money, you're just gonna play against everybody else who has the same number of cards you do, so you don't gain any actual advantage from that other than just having
Right.
being able to play the cards you want, which is still an upside, but you don't gain like a tactical advantage over spending a bunch of money, which is
When Runeterra came out, it had a similar thing where like you could buy wild cards from the store, but you could only buy 3 champion wild cards per week. So
I
like
remember that.
they super like hard like gated the early meta by not letting whales and stuff just completely just buy out the entire store. And it was such an interesting time because it was just like, oh man, like it felt like I was playing the stock trade because I was just like, do I put my stonks in Teemo or do I put it in Draven? Like, what's gonna be the good card to play? Like,
Yeah, that's
it was a good time.
good times. I'm not against that system, but I feel like limiting is always a little like, I don't know, risky.
That was basically only during Foundation. Once the new sets came out, they did away with that. But it was still interesting because like that was when they were like the meta was still kind of evolving, and I think they were just trying to prevent people from cracking it like day one and
Yeah,
screwing
exactly.
over new
Buy
players.
the entire deck gang, and all of a sudden you're just crushing.
Because even like they definitely like push new archetypes. So the newest cards that come out, they definitely make them stronger to try to sell skins and attract people to the game. How bad would you feel if you opened your brand new Aatrox deck and lose every game because it's not strong enough in the meta? Like that's pretty feels bad. But that's card games.
Exactly.
What do?
We don't talk about Magic
The beauty
Arena.
of digital. Yeah, oh God bless. I want to like it so bad, but
Wizards does not want me to like their game. They don't want people to like their game. It's the only explanation.
It's like it's not even just the monetization. It just feels kind of clunky. I don't know. Maybe hopefully it's gotten better, but
No, I don't.
I played it. Oh man, I played it like late 2020. Like obviously, everybody was stuck inside during COVID, and that's kind of when I reignited my love for Magic. And yeah, I played it a bit. It just I don't know. It like I was saying earlier about like Snap and Hearthstone. It just doesn't have that. Like it doesn't feel. It just feels very awkward. Like
It feels
resolving
forced.
every trigger.
It's like it feels forced. Like they're like, well, we know what
Yeah.
we want to put in the game, and they just stuck it there, and they were like, all right.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just
It's
like, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a client. It feels like I don't know.
it's
solitaire.
practical. Like yeah, like everything that needs to be there is functionally there, but it doesn't have that pizzazz. It doesn't have that
Yeah.
charm
And
that like other card games
said
have.
they were going for that for a while because there were some animations that was like, oh, you play this card, you see a giant hand come
Dragon
down,
or
and
some
boom,
shit, yeah.
smacks everything, and you're like, this is cool, but I feel like that's. I mean, it's been a while, so maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the animations over the course of time and the sound effects have kind of declined. I guess they just wanted to start spending energy on cards they didn't know were going to be worthwhile, because I think they had for a while. I think they were trying to predict, like, well, we think this card's gonna be super popular, so let's create an animation for it. And if they're wrong, they're all of a sudden they're wasting resources, and they don't want to do that. But there's some effects like Approach of the Second Sun. Like when you win with Approach of the Second Sun, you think there'd be like a giant animation,
a custom animation
that triggers, but it's just like, nope, it just resolves and the opponent blows up and he says the victory screen, and it's just like missed opportunity, the Wizards mission statement. So I'm just like, bro, like just I don't understand. I don't know what's the thought process behind this stuff. I don't know if the people are just like not good enough, or if there's tons of red tape, or if it's a combination of all of the above, or a lack of direction, or like what their goal is.
Obviously I'm not like an industry insider or anything, but my prediction, I think it has a lot to do with Hasbro and their influence over the company.
Well, I think
the people at
recently,
Wizards do generally care.
Right, but it doesn't mean they're good at their job. But originally, Bank of America cut Hasbro's stock because of Wizards, I think, or something like that. They're basically telling Wizards of the Coast that they've been like putting out too much content. They're getting too greedy. Because if you keep tabs on Wizards of the Coast, there's like a spoiler season every like 2 weeks. It's like insane. Once a new spoiler season starts before the other one has ended, there's so much content that people are just like,
exhausting.
what do you even do with this? And I think after they got their stocks cut a little bit, Wizards finally was like, all right, we gotta slow down, which was common sense to literally anybody but the Wizards of the Coast, who was just like pushing stuff. But I guess at the end of the day, people were buying.
What do you mean you don't want more cards?
I guess people were buying, so they were just like, well, let's keep shoving content so people stop buying.
It's that same Nintendo mentality. It's like, well, we just made $1 gazillion off Pokemon. Why would we put more effort into the graphics? People are gonna buy it anyways. So it's that kind of dangerous mentality that causes these problems.
There was one guy. There was one of the, I think the Magic designers on Twitter was talking about how how less people are playing Standard or something. I commented on it, not that people saw it, but I think people liked my comments. I commented on it and I was basically like, it's because Standard built a bad reputation, so people stopped playing. And if you want to start, but you hear that Standard's in a good place, so you open up Magic Arena again, but Magic Arena is garbage, and the economy is crap. Therefore, you don't waste your time or money on the arena, so therefore you don't play Standard. And
yeah, it's just doing like everything it can to turn you off to
the
exactly.
Idea of playing. And I'm like, I commented on it. And I was like, I know I'm a literally nobody, but like I swear I could help you if you would just. I have ideas if you want to reach out. But I was
because like I feel like I'm pretty average as far as Magic players go. So like let's say I'm like, okay, you know, COVID's kind of like over or whatever. I want to get into Standard and start going to my LGS. And I play a few, you know, I go to like an FNM or like a pre-release or something. I have a good time drafting. Okay, that's all fun. All right, let's get into a Standard archetype. I fucking spent $100 to buy a Standard. Oh, that's probably on the low end at this point. I spent $100 to buy spent $100 to buy a Standard deck so I can compete and, you know, actually maybe like at least get top 8 or win or something. And then they ban the card that's integral to the archetype that I play. Yeah, because it's too OP.
Yeah, that's because
like, kill me now.
Up until like I think it was Teferi or Throne of Eldraine, I can't remember when, but like they absolutely did not want to ban cards in Standard at all for obvious reasons. You don't want to buy packs, open them up, be like, oh, you can't use this card. But like, not everybody pays attention to the ban list. You don't know if you're just like a casual player. You don't know. You're gonna show up to FNM with a banned card because why would you know any different? And they'll be like, no, you can't play this card in the pack that you bought. You're just like, well, what the crap? And
yeah, Uro. Oh wow, what a cool Simic card. Oh, I'm gonna spend $80. You know, whatever, getting 4 of them. Oh wait, just kidding. He's banned.
Yeah, Uro was
so
a
rough.
Stupidly designed card. Whoever designed that card should have been immediately fired from the Magic community. The card literally does everything. Literally everything. It gains you life, it draws you cards, it gives you lands, it's a big beater, it returns from the graveyard. Like, and then on repeat. Like, tell me what it doesn't do. It does literally everything.
Graveyard. I think the biggest issue I have with it is because its brother Kroxa is Rakdos.
Right.
So to me, that whole like not unearth, but you know, whatever, the escape, that whole like escape mechanic, that makes perfect sense in something like Rakdos. But in Simic, flavor wise, does not belong there at all. I mean, that's just my like.
I don't remember.
It just seems like a fail.
I know Escape was having a lot because like the Underworld was being released, right? So all these people were coming back from the
yeah.
So I can see like Escape is a narrative mechanic more than it is a color mechanic. But to me, the problem is that Kroxa was supposed to parallel Uro, but it didn't.
Right.
Because Uro was draw a card, play a land, gain 3 life, and Kroxa was discard a card. If you discard a land, lose 3 life, or you discard a non-land, whichever one, lose 3 life or whatever. It's supposed to parallel it, but the difference is that drawing a card, gaining 3 life, and playing a land is way better than forcing your opponent to discard a card, and they might lose 3 life.
That's too much. It's too much value.
What's it called? Exactly. It should have been
for 3 mana.
It should have just if Euro didn't draw you a card, it probably would have been fine. Because it's like, oh, you play Euro, you play a land out of your hand, you're like, okay, whatever, that's fine. But the fact
Yeah,
that
because if you don't have any lands in your hand, then it's just gain 3
Yeah.
life.
exactly.
But when you draw into that land.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, oh look, free value, and then you keep attacking and you keep drawing more cards and playing more land, and it's just like it spirals. So I think if Euro didn't draw you a card, if it was just play a land, gain 3 life, then it would have been more balanced. But the card never
less
should have been
ridiculous.
printed to begin with. I think, but that kind of leads back to the conversation earlier that I believe the problem is that they're putting out so much content, or so much like cards that they don't have time to test these
Yeah.
cards fully. So they're just like they do a couple
Stuff
of
like
tests.
that slips through the cracks.
Yeah, they don't get enough games with it to be realized like, hey, this should be like 1 extra mana, or hey, we should maybe trim this down a little bit, or something like
I don't
that.
know, man. I feel like if you've been playing Magic for like any length of time, you can look at a card like Uro and be like, "That's busted." That's like
Yeah. You would think. Well, see, but the thing is like they don't
it
start.
seems so
They don't
obvious.
start there. So like I can understand like if you don't start at
Right,
that point, you see transition, you don't have a fresh look to the card anymore. So your perception of it's going to be
Yeah.
skewed, which is why you're supposed to have a testing group and kind of take these cards and be like, all right, wait a second,
Get some fresh eyes on it.
yeah, you're like, I no longer lose the game when I play 4 of these in my deck. So I think, yeah, I think it's a small issue, but what
This
can
is
you
the
do?
card game episode, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to our card game podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I fucking love card games. I know you
So
do
I.
too.
I like card games.
And,
I love, as much as I love video games. To me, I love tabletop games more than video games. I think I've realized that in the past. Well, I don't know, probably for all eternity. But I've getting in a group together and playing games is more fun to me than playing video games. Not that I don't have fun playing video games, but yeah, I just prefer like board games. Maybe just designing board and game design, which and board
Yeah.
game design and card designs.
I feel the same way, man. When it comes to multiplayer, I much prefer a board game, like, because I grew up like my family. We were always playing like Monopoly and all kinds of different board games. That's just how I grew up.
Yeah,
like,
pretty
the
much.
video games was what I did when I was by myself. Whenever like I was like, okay,
Yeah, it's time for
to go play
some
Kingdom Hearts
introversion.
or
Yeah,
something.
what's it called?
Yeah.
Yeah, my family grew up in a similar way. My dad's not the biggest fan of board games. My mom loves playing games as a family. My dad's like, I hate board games because if you're gonna lose, you have to sit there and suffer through it, even though you know you're gonna lose. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of true. My dad enjoys playing 42, a dominoes game, where the round ends when the round ends. So like,
Yeah.
so he's like, I'm okay with this because once you lose, everybody knows you lose. So you just move on to the next round, and so you don't have to sit there and suffer. But I think
I'm trying to remember the quote. It's like suffering is a given, but misery is a choice, or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote.
what's it
but
called? I think I know
yeah,
what you're
you don't
talking about.
you don't have to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're losing, but you can have fun losing. You just have to have
Yeah,
the
exactly.
different mentality. Trust me, I played League of Legends.
Yeah, it's called I feel like any team game on the internet with strangers is a bullet through the head. It's just the way the world works. It's rough. But yeah, I remember one time we were in Lithuania, actually, or on the way to Lithuania, because my dad was doing some mission work for one of the churches, or at one of the churches there, and he finally decided to bring the rest of the family along. And my parents taught me and my younger sister how to play Spades, the card game.
Yes.
And at the beginning, obviously, like, parents and child were on a team with parents and child, but eventually,
Sure.
like, we flipped the script, and I think I had just finished 6th grade, which means my sister had just finished like second grade or so, first or second grade. And on that trip, me and her started being on a team together, and then we started beating our parents.
Kids versus adults.
And we kept winning. And like,
Heck yeah.
historically, I feel like the siblings are constantly beating the parents for some inexplicable reason. So it's just so games are kind of, I don't know, part of the tradition in a way, in a sense.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, love board games, love card games. I want to teach my mom how to play Magic. I know it's a very complicated game, so uh,
Yeah,
it's not exactly easy to learn. But I actually designed my own, like, you know how they have like those dual decks, those like learn to play,
right.
like starter decks. So I designed my own versions based on some like commons and uncommons I had laying around, and so I built a like mono red, like kind of goblin-y burn deck, and then
Right.
I built a mono white, like life gain, tap stuff down, like
Pure evil.
soldiery kind of like. I
Mono Red's one weakness: gain one life.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just thought it was such a like perfect like opposites
Right.
of the Magic spectrum, like super hard aggro and like super hard control. And yeah, I play tested against Ed, and I think they're like reasonably balanced. I probably still need to play test it a little bit more, but
Well, I mean,
I do
I'm
think
always
they're
available
decently.
for uh, testing and
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah, yeah,
That's kind of my specialty at
yeah.
the end of
Next
the
time,
day.
yeah, next time we meet up, I'll bring them and we can test it
Are they
out.
full like 60 card decks, or did you show them like those 30 card decks that those little starter decks would be, 30 or 40?
They are 60 card, but they're singleton. So there's only one copy of each. Like, like there's each card is unique, but it is a like
Right. Well, if
how many lands I
my
put.
recommend if you're using these decks as a means to teach people the game, which I'm guessing that's kind of the intent, I would recommend the more copies of a
At
card, the
least
better.
2 or 3 copies.
Or what's it called?
Yeah.
Simply because um, just familiarity with seeing the card multiple times will make people feel more comfortable playing the deck on repeats rather than feel like you're playing a different game every time can be overwhelming. When you
Yeah.
start seeing the same cards multiple
True.
times over and over, you'll feel more comfortable with the deck and interacting with other mechanics. So, and if you're teaching people, it's not unreasonable to drop like the deck size down to 40 or so. 40. If you're just like, oh, I just want to teach you the basics of the game. Here's a small 40 card deck, so you can kind of just start creating some good habits and not be like overwhelmed. So that's a
Yeah,
food for
my
thought.
reasoning. Yeah, definitely. My reasoning was like like I said, most of them are commons and uncommons. So the design space for a common tends to be a lot more straightforward than like a
Right.
rare or
Oh yeah,
mythic.
for sure.
Um, and also it was like I said, it was just loose cards.
Yeah,
I was
loose
playing
card. Yeah,
around, so I
yeah.
didn't
I mean,
have,
that's obviously true.
I was
but-
like going through my cards, like I was looking for something in particular for a commander deck, and I was just like, as I kept like scrolling through or like flipping through cards, I was just like, I just kept getting this idea of like, I want to make like some fucking dual decks. That'd be a fun idea.
It
So I
would
did.
be. Yep.
Yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but yeah, video games to me have always just felt more like, not that like I do enjoy some video games with friends, but for the most part they're just like a pretty like solo experience. Like my favorite games are story focused, exploration focused, like questing type games.
Yeah,
Like
I'm not.
Zelda is like
What's it
my
called?
favorite of all time.
Yeah, that's why I don't do much like competitive like first. I never played much first person shooters to begin with, but a lot of my games are kind of in that vicinity. And if they're like strategic, it's more like the Fire Emblem. Take your turn base, so you have time to kind of sit and think,
Love Fire Emblem.
and then you lose a character, then you restart the game, restart the whole level because you refuse to let a character die. So
It's the healer that always gets one shot.
it's like
Every time.
everything's fine and going fine, and then you're checking out and you put one character in a certain spot and you're like, you think everything's fine, then all of a sudden you forget that there's like an archer that's around the corner and he just like walks up and shoots it, and you're just like, my last 30 minutes of work just gone out the window. Yep.
I think that was one thing I really liked about have you played Three Houses?
Yes.
I think that was one of my favorite things, was just having that little fucking rewind mechanic.
Uh,
Because at first I was like, oh, this makes it too easy, but then and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing Fire Emblem. I forgot.
yeah, I know.
It's-
That definitely makes me interested about the
brutal sometimes.
new Fire Emblem game is going to be. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I'm going to buy it and play it, of course. But some of the
I'm
it feels a little
worried about what
gotcha-y,
I've heard.
and the main characters seem a little mobile-y. So, but they're bringing the weapon
Yeah,
triangle
I saw-
back and some other more core mechanics of the Fire Emblem series. So maybe it's fine. Maybe you're just paranoid. But I'll still buy it and play it because it's Fire Emblem.
I don't dislike gacha as long as it's not microtransactions. So I was talking to Scott a bit about it, and I've never played Xenoblade, but he said in Xenoblade 2 they have a gacha system with the weapons that you can get, the weapons that are also waifus because Japan.
Sure,
Um,
of course.
and so like they have like these like story character weapons that you're like guaranteed to get no matter what, but then they'll also have like a gotcha system to make everyone's playthrough a little bit different. So we were both kind of like in agreement that like if they do it that way, that sounds fun. That sounds great to me. It'll make every playthrough special, but you'll never feel like, you know, nerfed because you didn't get a good weapon or something,
Right.
or character. But if it's microtransactions, fuck that. I'm not buying it.
I can't imagine it would be microtransactions. That seems very counterintuitive to everything that they've been kind of doing, other than their mobile game. But that's a mobile game, so it has different.
I was gonna say they've already got Fire Emblem Heroes, so why would they make a competing?
Yeah,
like, why
exactly.
would they compete with themselves?
Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. Why would create a mobiles gotcha and then a Switch gotcha? Like that seems that doesn't make any sense to me. So
speaking of Switch, do you think we're gonna get a new system pretty soon?
Oh man, I haven't even
Because
thought about
it's been about 6 years, which is kind of roughly the time frame that new consoles will release. And the sequel to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, is coming out. And if you remember, for the past like 3 or 4 console generations, Zelda titles are split across the old and new generation. So I have a strong feeling that it may not be like day one of Tears of the Kingdom, but I think within a year or two, we will probably see a new.
I can see that. It's hard to know. It's hard to analyze the timeline. I think with COVID messed up the timeline for everything. So.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to think like where would they go from here? That's also. Unless
yeah,
they
like,
unless they just say
the Switch is the Switch is really well designed. I think it might be my favorite console of Nintendo's, at least.
Very well designed. If they were to make a new system, it would have to be like it would just have to have the full like computer weight of like the current generation.
Just beef it up under the hood. Yeah.
They'd have to go really hard on that, I think. And
that's
maybe,
all I
feel
really want from a new system.
Yeah,
stronger under
exactly.
the hood.
Being able to like travel around the world, I guess, is kind of nice. Being able to take your Switch out and go on trips with it, and then you bring it back and you put it back in the port, and everything's fine. I feel like if Nintendo were to come out with, if Nintendo were just to come out with a Switch that wasn't literally wasn't a Switch because it was only one thing, but just a consoles only Nintendo Switch, and were to like jack the specs up to professional levels, I think it would see a lot of sales. And
Nintendo consoles roughly each generation they roughly double in power. So
yeah,
hopefully we get at least twice the strength of the core Switch. I know I think the OLED might be slightly stronger. Not sure. Can't confirm that. Don't own one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I could see a new generation. I don't know where they go from here, but I could definitely see a new generation of Switch or Nintendo software coming out. But also at the same time, I don't know. I feel like it's weird because Pokemon just moved into the Switch vicinity as well, and so they might want to milk that for a little bit longer, rather than being like, oh, we just got the Switch. Oh, well, now we're going to a new platform already. Like follow along or keep putting stuff out for Switch for the next 10 years. That's not helpful for them either. So I can imagine just upgraded spec Switch, or maybe just a console only Switch. I think that would be really smart of them if they would do a console only Switch and just maxed out the specs and be like, you guys wanted a good game, then here you go. It's not you can't take it anywhere. There's no docking station, but like here's a console that plays Switch games that you can plug in a computer to run with the power that.
For me, I really.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for me, I like that's one of my favorite things about it is that modality, because there are certain games that I just prefer on a like big screen or on a small, like, so if I want to just knock out a few minutes of Stardew Valley, I don't really need to like, turn on my TV. Like that's something that's just nice just to kind of fool around on in mobile. But if I'm going to play Fire Emblem, like I really want like that. I mean, I guess that's a game that's decent on mobile too, but
Right.
that game I just
Well, let's say you
prefer
want to
on the
play like
TV.
a
Like,
Breath of the Wild on the console. You want the full graphics, the
yeah,
full everything, the full power of the system behind it.
there-
You're like, I want this giant HDMI screen with the full everything, and a console to back it up. And
or Mario
so,
Kart or Mario
yeah,
Party. Yeah, like
exactly.
things that they
So
have to be on the TV.
yeah, exactly. And at this point, like,
Yeah.
most people who would buy that already have the original Switch, so you're not really losing out on anything. You're like, oh, if I want to play Stardew Valley on my portable Switch, I'll just have it in there, and on my console Switch, I'll just put like Fire Emblem on there, and
Yeah.
we'll be fine. So that's
I think a lot of these issues that have been cropping up with like graphically, I know there have been, especially around like the Pokemon games with Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. I think a lot of it, yeah, it just has to do with the age of the system, just
yeah.
not being
A
able
lot
to
of
keep up
people
with.
say the Switch can't handle the weight of the Pokemon, which I mean, Pokemon is a very like hard mechanically driven game.
So many assets, so
Yeah,
many different assets.
It's insane, and it's very possible that the Switch is like, I can barely handle this, and that's why you have issues. So it's but nobody, I don't think, really knows what the answer is, because some people be like, well, look at this other system that's where like the grass looks way better here in like Legend of Zelda or Breath of the Wild than does in Pokemon, but the assets in Pokemon are way deeper and like broader than they are in Breath of the Wild, right? So maybe the focus is a little bit different, or the weight of the asset or whatever is a little bit different. Like I don't know, I'm just spitballing, but until Nintendo puts out a Switch with enough with enough firepower to actually like hold some of these title games, we will not know. So if I were to put my money on a new system, I would put it on a console only Switch, even though I just came up with that right now. But that would be where my money would be at.
Yeah, I think I'd be more interested in that than like a Switch Lite or an OLED, just because I've got my Stardew Valley, I've got my three houses.
Exactly. It's like what do I really need like an OLED Switch for? Like I've already got a Switch. I mean, yeah, it may look a little better, but like, am I gonna like what am I actually missing out on? So hopefully, well, I guess we'll see.
Foxley says Game Freak is lazy and doesn't care because they know people will buy it. I don't know if it's necessarily lazy, but yeah, the yearly release cycle is backbreaking. I mean, to have to pump out a game every year like that.
I don't think Arceus was Game Freak. I don't think Arceus or Brilliant Diamond were Game Freak. I think
Pokemon Company, it's all under that.
Yeah, but Pokemon Company is basically in its own country at this point. So it's kind of higher GDP value than like half the countries in the world at least. So it's,
yeah, there's definitely some issues that are like, it doesn't. They're like we were saying earlier with like the animators and stuff. There's some issues that are more an issue of the industry, of COVID, of corporations pushing control, than the actual like boots on the ground people that are working on these projects that bleed and sweat for the company. They love it to death. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be there.
Yeah, so it's I guess we'll
manage your IP better, guys. Come on.
It is a huge IP, Pokemon. It's, man, I think it's like the wealthiest company in the world. It brings in like 15 billion a year or something like that. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ludicrous. And I just when you're moving that quantity of money, I feel like there should be a little more responsibility towards the consumer.
Well, I'm sure a lot of it goes back into, I mean, think of all the employees they have to have, and all obviously their connections, their prize monies for the tournaments. Like I'm sure even though they make $15 billion a year or whatever it is, sure a lot of it goes back into their own stuff. So
Oh sure.
no
Yeah,
idea, no idea how
the
much
cost
just
to produce these games are
right.
insane, and the marketing and the and
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
they've I obviously I don't work at Nintendo, but I be this Mario movie is the first of many. Be prepared to see a lot of Nintendo movies over the coming years. They opened their own studio. They partnered with what's their the fucking Minions company,
I
whatever those
can't
people
remember.
are. But be prepared to see a shit ton more Nintendo movies, which honestly
Smash
I'm
Brothers
pretty excited
universe,
for. I
Pikachu,
think
Sonic, Mario. We're almost there.
I unironically think that that's what they are trying to set up. Like, I would not be surprised if we get a Zelda movie pretty soon,
What's it called?
or Metroid.
Yeah, a
Dude, a
Metroid.
fucking like horror Metroid movie. Oh, it sounds so cool.
That would be absolutely dope.
I don't know how well Zelda would work as a movie, just because it's like an Odyssey type adventure, but I mean, it certainly could work if
I
done
think
well.
I mean Odyssey types of adventure. I mean it's literally an Odyssey is literally an adventure. Like that's literally the whole point. I think if you
Yeah.
write it as an Odyssey type adventure, I think you'd do quite well. Casting
It's
for
gotta be
Zelda would be
careful.
rough, but if you do animated or live
Yeah,
action, I
but,
guess as well.
yeah, I'd even be down for like if they just go purely anime, because like that's what I was saying is I think they're gonna be like they partner with this studio, so I think they're gonna be primarily animated, but voiced by like Link is animated, but he's like voiced by Tom Holland or some shit,
Yeah.
like it'll be people we know in the industry.
Right, for better for worse.
I'm excited. I think that's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole. It's the whole.
Said, well, excuse me, princess. God, those games are fucking nightmare fuel. If you ever want to entertain yourself, go watch the like Game Grumps or something play through those games. They are horrifying. The what are they? They're on some old system. I don't remember, CDI or something.
Good times. Anything else before we wrap up? Future plans for the channel. We got Theros coming in January, I believe.
Yeah, Christmas one shot next week. Theros. Because I've been prepping Cthulhu, I've been mildly pulled away from working on that, but it's like 40% done ish, I would say. So we'll see. It may be closer to February. I can't say. I'm trying. It's hard for me to try to work on like multiple projects at the same time.
That's all right. Well, Cthulhu ends next week,
like,
and then you have Christmas break.
Star
so
Wars.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll have to probably. We'll probably aim for January, but it also depends on people's work schedules and see when they can get availability.
Yeah, I really want to do back to back weeks. I don't want it to take a month and a half to do 3 sessions. I want to just boom 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 knock it out, and I know that may exclude some people from playing, but that's just I think it's going to create a better story for the people playing, and I think it's going to create a better experience for the people watching. Because Star Wars, right now we do the bi-weekly thing, and geez, last session we were forgetting shit left and right.
Sad. I'd play Star Wars. I'd play Star Wars 3 times a week if I could.
Yeah, I think even just weekly would help so much.
Yeah, weekly is definitely
mentally keep track.
The way campaigns are designed to be ran. But not dungeons. But that's a whole different conversation that we've been had in the chat a couple times. But yeah, I feel like for these big story-driven ones, you definitely want to constantly be coming back and like staying on top of, because it's so easy to forget small stuff as time goes on. But yeah, hopefully Theros. I've already started talking to a few people about what characters are going to be making. I'm still undecided. I'm leaning toward one, but I was thinking of another one the other day. So I still might stick with a Minotaur though. Minotaur feels appropriate, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
For anyone unfamiliar, I've mentioned it before, but Theros is the Magic the Gathering take on. It's one of the planes of Magic the Gathering, but it's their kind of Greek gods universe. very much inspired by like the Odyssey and all that good stuff. So, planning on running a little mini series, not quite a one shot, not quite a campaign. Just want to do like a quick little 3-session arc, and that's coming soon to the channel.
Yep, I'm super excited for that. I'll probably make the final. Well, obviously, I'll make the final decision when we get closer to there, and probably have our own session 0. But
yeah, I've got a very specific vision for this. Like when I kind of incepted this idea, so I want everyone to be on the same page as me, hopefully, for that.
Yep, I think it's going to work super well. Fingers crossed, anyways.
Absolutely.
So,
okay. About that time.
Close enough. I think it's about time.
Grab your rations.
Grab your ration.
Grab your water skin.
Yep.
Get your spell slots marked off. And,
refresh your hit dice and spell slots. Yep. Good times. But,
all right, guys. It's been fun. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you guys next couple weeks from now, probably. But
yeah, we're taking. Oh yeah, I don't know. I said it last time, but yeah, we're taking. Christmas is on a Sunday, so we're taking that day off, and New Year's is on a Sunday as well. So we're gonna be taking 2 weeks off. So no session or podcast for those 2 weeks. Just gonna let people be with their family. Give me a break.
Exactly.
Give everyone a break. Give everyone.
And then the Sunday or the Sunday after New Year's, we'll be either doing a podcast or we'll be doing a session. Honestly, could be either one, but we'll be here on the second Sunday of January, one thing or another.
Yep, there will be something for you to watch, so stay tuned. All right, y'all. Peace out. Have a happy holidays. Don't forget to join us next week for that Cthulhu Call of Cthulhu Christmas one shot. It's gonna be spoopy, Victorian era, good times.
All right.
Later.